Right, good afternoon, and we're back. So, I think we left all, you got any updates in the hour and a half?
You have an updated handout that has all your decisions through the end of this morning's session.
Do I?
And then we mentioned the discussion items, which is in your package, also up on the screen, if you didn't remember what it looked like. Just some things that you probably ought to at least stop and say, do we want to talk about this?
Right,
Okay,
You got an updated handout from this morning?
yes.
yes.
We just handed you a 2-page paper.
Yep.
I don't see that.
There,
Two pages with a paper clip.
That's not it.
do you have to?
Lynn gave me hers.
Okay, it started, okay.
We don't have to leave it around.
Okay, I got it.
Did I bring it? I didn't bring it. I don't need it. I might.
Extra here, yeah.
All right, so you all have that. How do you want to proceed here this afternoon? Do you want to go down through this discussion items, just to address them?
Sure.
And then we can do a complete review, if you will, and go from there. So if that's okay, the first two action items have pretty much, I think, we've tackled that. North Carroll High School,
We talked about it.
We
I don't know
talked
what else
about
we can
that.
Talk about.
Are there any discussion on the water sewer rates? I mean, we understand the risk associated with it and the need to pay off. We're all committed to doing it. I mean, 8%, like I said, is southern part of the county.
Right.
It's affecting. It's affecting 3 of the districts, I believe, is what we discussed.
yeah,
But it is a way,
because it affects my district and your district as well. We're half and half over
Yeah.
there in the valley.
is a way to increase revenue, but it's very targeted revenue, right? Because the state's.
Right, it's just for the water and sewer fund.
Right. So what was your question? I haven't heard anything.
No, I mean, I'm just to get any feedback. I honestly, I was expecting, and I heard nothing.
Yeah, well, I think we'll probably get something as a result of the traveling road show that Ted goes on.
Yeah.
And then certainly we may hear something as a result of that at the public hearing as well, so.
Okay, and then, I apologize.
Wow, you had to get up to do that? Usually you yell at me. Wow.
He pays me more.
Just saying. Little bow tie. Anyway. Sheriff disability, we had a discussion. We got to 45%. Again, I have not got any feedback from community, I mean, except internally.
No, I haven't either. We got an email from HR today explaining it a little bit more for us. And I think there's going to be a follow-up as to what it means with the sheriff and HR as well. But beyond that, I haven't heard anything. North Carroll High School, we've discussed that at length. Certainly, at this point, we've taken the action to remove some of the things that we would have to do to maintain the building over there as it pertains to the roof and the HVAC and the raising if it was, would be
Even
necessary.
The maintenance of it runs out.
Right.
Maintenance is in FY '20 budget, not in '21.
Not in '21,
Right.
correct.
So we're good through 20 with the. with-
Right.
Okay.
Good for,
Through '21.
21. Yep, good through 21, which is what the original deal was anyway, because we said by 22, we've got to make a decision.
And it puts skin in the game
So-
for economic development to
If, yeah,
get moving on.
not if, but when.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So all the other two are associated with that, the Sheriff's Academy and the turf field. So when we hear something
Well,
reference to
the
that.
turf field, you do have some separate issues, in that we have 500,000 and another 200,000 for what's probably $1 million project. Now, if we're going to be getting rid of the school and the land with this field, and it's hard to see how we'd move ahead with building a turf field with state money. If we are going to move ahead with building a field, then we have a question of where's the other money coming from? And somewhere, one way or another, if we're not going to use the state money, we're at some point going to have to tell them we don't want the money.
Right. Well, we wouldn't get the money anyway till after July, correct?
Right.
We'll know more by then, where we are.
So could we leave it the way it is, Ted, until such time as with no decision on the turf field?
Can we put an RFP out to find out how much it would cost to put a turf field out? See if we have the funding available to do that. That doesn't do anything except give us an idea of what it's going to cost.
No, I'm just thinking about that, what that would mean.
Well,
It doesn't,
yeah.
doesn't stall it,
Yeah.
it
Right.
actually might move quicker.
Right, and I mean, we made the decision to have that money in place as a match to additional funds and, that 500,000. So that's
Correct.
where we're at. What the question is one, is the cost that it would take to build and run the turf field, and then two, who is going to build and run and be accountable for the turf field? Those are decisions that we haven't come to grips with, and I think a step in the right direction would be to do an RFP to at least get a cost of what a turf field would be,
Well,
To-
if the
to
WHO
put
is
up there.
anybody but us, I don't think the state is going to be okay with their money being part of the picture.
Not necessarily, I mean, if the WHO is to build the turf field is us, and then the state will support that. But to actually run the turf field, I don't know if the state would have,
Oh, you're saying something like we own the field and somebody else is going
Correct.
to run it?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah, we have to put that out. We're
Right.
not in the position to run something like that.
no, but it is our position to build the field, be responsible for developing the field with that 500,000 and the match of 200,000. So we do the RFP, we find that out, but then also, who would then manage that field? That's not the state's.
Okay, well, then that brings another question into the mix then too, on where are we going with this? If we're going to talk about somebody else running this field, presumably they're doing it for some reason, which I would guess is going to be to make money. Now, originally, we were going to build this field to serve our rec councils. Those two seem incompatible to me. So, I mean, you can decide whatever you want, but it seems like we need to be talking about which path are we going on.
Well, I think first step is put an RFP out, find out how much it would cost to put a turf field down there. And no matter what path is taken after that, you have to find out how much it would cost anyway. I mean, do we have enough money? Do we not? If we don't, then we'd have to look at something else. And we'll make that decision when it comes, but I think the more information we have before we make a decision, the better it is.
And we can do an RFP. We have, Howard County has a ton of these fields, and
Right.
we know about $1 million is a reasonable estimate.
I've talked to some people who do these fields, looking at it. Roughly, if we can keep the soil on site and use it, we're about 900,000 from track to track. Just the field itself would be about 750.
No,
So.
I
we'll-
mean, I believe
And that's,
you, but
I
still
just in
like-
that rough estimate
Right.
they gave me, so I needed an idea how much this thing's gonna run before we pursued anything on it. And as far as finding some funding, all we have to do is say we need more funding. I think we have some people who will get the funding for us. But right now, maybe we do need to get a solid estimate on what it would cost and come back to us, and how this all fits together. We need to get plans put to place here.
Okay, but what you said goes back to the concern I keep bringing up. If you're saying we're going to get private money in the mix, I'm not sure that was part of the state's thinking on putting money onto this
No, but
project.
the state has already committed to $200,000 to matching the county funds. So we're not mixing what the county has committed to doing, and that's what we did through our decision here, was to execute that $500,000. So that's what the state is
Yeah.
responding to.
But-
Now, as far as I apologize, but as far as the operations of it, that is the next step, and we definitely have to be looking at that, but the first step is to take away the anecdotal information and get an RFP out to say.
But
this is what the
Commissioner
cost
Weaver
will
was
be.
just suggesting private money on the construction of the field, and that's what I'm saying.
In
I
addition,
can-
Yes.
Right, and that's right. I'm not sure the state would be on board with that.
Why not?
Define private money.
Well, you just said
Money didn't come
we can
from
get
us.
more money from somewhere.
Yeah.
It won't be from the state, and if it's not from
Okay,
us,
okay, it
then...
could be there. But as long as, I think the priorities are there for schools and rec councils, they probably wouldn't have too much opposition to it.
Well, I mean, we didn't have to look at that right now, to be honest with you. Just put an RFP out, see how much it costs, put a turf field down there, and we can go from there when
Right.
the time comes. If it costs 700,000 or less, we have 700,000, we got it. If it costs more than that, that's when you have to look at, if we get donation money in or whatever, will the state still be okay with putting the 200,000 in? That's when you can check all that out. But till we have the information of how much it's gonna cost, we're just spinning our wheels. Let's put an RFP out on that and move on to the next thing. That's my motion.
Yeah, I mean, we've committed to doing that. We've committed to executing that money. So we shouldn't be in a position now to say no. We should be in a position now to say, like you said, the RFP, and what's next?
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, I'm fine with that, but beyond the RFP, I'm not fine with.
Correct.
No, I just,
Correct.
the motion just for the RFP?
We got to get a cost. We don't have.
Yeah, let's get that's good.
Except for what I've done on my own to get a,
Beyond that conversation, even if we run it, where's that money coming
That's
from?
right.
Right.
That
Yeah,
means
you're right.
people over there under the lights at 10 o'clock at night.
Yep.
Who's paying those people?
But,
There's a ton here. It all sounds lovely. We got 200,000 from the state, yay. But there are so many
no, you're right.
There are so many extra details here that we have no answer for, none. So what if the RFP comes back and says, yep, you can put a turf field there for 700,000?
Then we start the next discussions,
On
because you know we can do
If they're
it.
not, it's not in the budget.
No, yeah, well, we got to figure all that out. Or we can say, okay, we can put it in there, but we really can't.
we've done nothing up to this point other than allocate some funds. We have to get a number together, and then we have to start step by step working through this. We just haven't done that up to this point.
Right. I mean, it really does come to a if this, then that approach. If it comes out a whole lot less, then we're able to do it. If it comes out right on target, we have to make a decision on how it's going to be run. If it comes out way above target, then we're like, no, we commit 500,000, but you're telling us it costs 1.2 million, well, time out. Okay? But allowing us to make that decision, we have to, the first step, I think, like Commissioner Fraser Sharon, is to do the RFP and move on, so. But I agree, we should not be looking past that
No.
at all.
Okay.
You're correct, Commissioner Waynes.
Wait, what?
I don't get to say it very often, but I would say it. You're correct, Commissioner Waynes.
That was the third time in 6 months now.
All right. All right, so you made that a motion to put out an
Yes,
RFP.
put an RFP for the turf
Did
field.
it get
and-
second? Who seconded it?
We,
Okay.
I heard him that time.
Did you? Okay. All right, all in favor of that decision?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Doesn't cost us anything anyway, does it?
No.
All right, Charles Carroll, road improvements. I mean, that still is a work in progress. I have no idea where we are with that. I will tell you that right now, as I told you all last week, the building has a gymnasium on it that will have no room for bleachers. So I guess you'd set up chairs around it. In order to expand the building to provide bleachers, we're at about 420,000, which includes the bleachers. Keeping in mind, of course, now that we are still challenged with the State Highway Administration latest decision that road improvements need to be made on State Route 97.
Will they give us an answer first? I mean, we need to get the road answer and then each step along the way. And you build the building and don't have the roads, will they give us a UNO on it?
It's a great question, Dick. I don't know.
I think we hit them hard with that, then we go to the convention. This is what we bring up, when we meet with them, is that this is what we need an answer, we want to move forward with this, we committed funds to this, we need your help, what can you do for us?
Yeah, I still think there's a great deal of misunderstanding by the State Highway Administration on the use of the building, or let me back up, on the specific time period of the usage of the building. You know, and I continue to say that, when it was a school, apparently it was no problem up there to have 18 buses and 57 parent vehicles taking kids in and out of there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But now that the change of usage is coming into play, now it's a problem. And I continue to say to them, which is part of the appeal process that I'm attempting to do with them, that the time period that building is going to be used is not 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's not that deluge of activity. So that doesn't answer the question. It's merely what I am trying to do with staff to answer questions on. I think you're wrong, to the engineers.
It doesn't make sense to build a building that's too small without bleachers. I mean,
No, I don't agree
this
with
is
that
a 30-year, 40-year building. You can't go in and build something substandard. However, you got to get your road answers before you go back to look at the building, so you can get use of it. So I would suggest we get the road squared away, at least the state highway on board. Then we get to look at the size of the building and,
Well, the problem is, we're in the design mode, we're in the design phase right now, based on the budget that we have in place, which is about 2.6 or 7 million left, so, your suggestion then is to put a hold on it.
well, you got to
Because
get the
we
road
can't-
squared away, that you're going to have that or have use of it from the state highway before you do anything else. You can't build what you want until you get that, and then,
Well, I would argue.
and I
that-
don't think you should have a substandard building in there when you do it.
Which is my argument. I would argue that, and I don't know where it would be coming from, but I would argue that we shouldn't stop the project or put a hold on the project, even with the road issue the way that it is, because we've got architects working on it now and making it a building without bleachers. So you're suggesting if we stop, we wait until we find $420,000 extra dollars in order to put bleachers in it. Because right now, they can't design a building that's over budget. That's my argument. Taking the road out of it,
How much financial commitment have we made so far into this project?
$3.2 million was the initial request, which included everything. And we're
And that's
down to
not
about
enough.
2.6 or 7, because the raising fees came out of there, and the architectural fees still are to come yet. So we're anticipating that we're at about 2.6.
It's further than I thought we were. Because I was wondering if pulling the plug on the whole thing was an option, but I guess not.
I'll be up out of my chair.
Well, that's not an option.
I mean, I would like to see it move forward, I would like to see it, don't put a hold on it, but if we're going to design a building, you got to design it large enough so that it has the bleachers. Now, we don't have to include bleachers in the price right now, but the building has to be large enough to accommodate them maybe at a later date. They can design that.
Yeah, we didn't get the breakdown on what the bleachers cost, did we?
The 420 includes the bleachers.
Yeah,
That's what I mean.
But I don't think they're a major portion of the expense, but I can find out.
No, 419 or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably guess on 20,000 for the bleachers and the rest, but
I
that's
would
a guess on my part.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
Right now, the architects have direction to design a certain size building.
Correct.
You can give them directions to design another size building, but if we're going to do that, it would have to be with the idea that we're going to actually have the money available to do it. And then the road question still doesn't go away. Whatever size building we build, if we don't have access to Route 97, then what does it mean to build a building?
What happens if we design the building and they come back and say you need $1.5 million to add to the road?
Well, they already are saying something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the project gets, I mean, the obvious answer is the project is put on hold. Or doesn't happen.
How realistically, how long do you think the state's going to?
I don't know. I have no answer to that. I've only taken it to about the mid-level right now. I haven't gotten to the high level yet, but it's coming.
Well, I mean, true, but there's only 2 levels above where you took it. I mean, really.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's gotten the attention of NDOT. I mean, I think we need to, honestly, I believe we need to press this harder with them, continue now, all the way through Mako, get in front of the secretary, you know, and say, listen, this has got to be done. Because if not, then here's the effects. And, but I agree. I mean, they changed the rules on the road, you know, for a lot less of a.
I honestly
traffic,
think
so.
there is a little bit of wiggle room there, but, you know, what,
I do too.
but, you know, I would entertain now, you know, what if I said to the 4 of you that I wanted to throw another $500,000 at the project, and what would that do to our bond, our bond commitment in the out years for that? In other words, put it back up to the 3.2 originally, which is what $500,000 would do.
Yeah, well, so you're talking about $45,000 a year of debt service or something along that, so you know what your bottom line is. But even if we take that action, I'm still wondering about the mix of timelines we have. I mean, if we're going to be moving ahead with designing a building before we know what the state is willing to do or not do in terms of what we're required. I mean, how far do we go spending money before we know what the state's going to require of us and if we're willing to do it?
Well, my argument to that would be at least we'd have the building designed. Because right now, we can't have them design the building with that extra space in it. At least we'd have the building designed, anticipating that.
How did we set this smaller building up to, that, we just give them a square footage we needed and that was it, or how did, it was?
No, we picked a figure back 2 years ago, or whenever, and said, it sounds like that would be the right number to build a community center.
Right.
Yep. Building construction
I think they gave us a square
Gave you
foot
an
price or something.
gave you a building that fit within the amount of dollars they had to work with.
And it's at $250 a square foot now, so, you know, that's the other issue. You can design the building now, and then if it gets put on hold, in 3 years, that might, or 2 years, or whatever it is, that won't apply, because building materials are up, labor's
Right.
up. So they're designing the building based on today's numbers. So I'm troubled with not having at least the funds somewhere for the right-size building.
I agree. I don't see, maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but I don't see the harm in having this building designed to the size that we need it to, with bleachers included, with the anticipation that the additional money will be bonded. Now, once it's designed, if we have trouble with the roads, it's okay, it's designed, it's sitting there, and you know what, it's gonna cost more in a year or two, but, okay, it might have to sit for a year or two, but the design's done.
But so,
Then we work on the road problems, but this way, at least I think it's moving forward.
well, I understand that, but again, somebody used this earlier, playing Ted in the school play. How do you design a building that's not financed?
Oh, well, like you said, we have the 2.7 or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
but that doesn't include the,
And we commit to bonding out the difference.
oh, okay.
Okay, and I want to go a step further again. I want to be careful, I'm not arguing against this project, but we'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on design. What happens if, once the state says it's $1.3 million, and then the board says, no, we're not willing to spend $1.3 million on Route 97? Then that design is just a stack of papers that we paid a lot of money for.
What's motivating this building? Is there a big demand for it? This comes from the previous board. I need to be brought up to speed.
So,
How about we made a commitment to the community to do this?
yeah.
They
that's-
don't have, this is a
The
senior
school was taken
center?
away, the
I
school
know.
was the
Nothing else.
only place that they had for the meetings, everything else was like the center of the community, that's what they had up there, that's all that they have.
Charles
Doesn't-
Carroll Elementary School was closed
Right.
by the school system, and then the commissioners raised the building.
And they lost their building.
Yes.
That's right.
And then said, we'll build this community center, which was basically a gymnasium and a couple rooms.
Right.
To have something in the community. So all that was what was driving the project. The questions now are surrounding the state road requirements and the money, the size of the building and the money. And I guess there's some difficult decisions, and unfortunately, it's not like everything is in front of us right now to say, we have everything we need to make the decision.
Yeah, I mean, it would be easy if we didn't have the state highway challenge in front of us, but,
That would be.
I mean, we could attempt to try to, you know.
And the architect has already been commissioned, and we're paying for them to do the design?
Correct,
So that's already in the pipeline.
right.
So we do have a design though, right? A small design, is it for a small building, small building?
Well, initial design, yeah. Initial design, they haven't gotten into the meat of the design yet, but the.
And what kind of building is
What
it?
is that? I think it's just.
It's a metal-
They have just like a blueprint.
Shipley Arena type?
Concept.
It's a metal
Yeah,
building, yeah, with, I don't know how best to say it. It's a metal building, because we had talked about doing some masonry too,
Right,
for the longevity of the building, and we can't afford that.
Yeah.
right, and you actually
So-
asked our delegation for additional funding for that as well.
Yeah,
So, yeah, and that's kind of where I was want to go, just to finish, pulling all of this and telling the rest of the story. We went to the delegation, right? Went to
no,
the
I did
state.
not go to the
Or to the
delegation.
state, wasn't?
I went to the state.
To the state.
With the state, and in
Okay.
conjunction with staff, we had gotten the word that all started when Secretary Brinkley was here and said,
Okay.
hey, yeah, you guys are doing that, you might want to put in some money for that project. So it got put into the governor's budget.
Right.
To
Okay.
the tune of $250,000. And made it most of the way through, and then got cut in the last couple weeks of it.
Do you think it has a chance next year of going through?
We're hopeful.
To go
Because
into
we've
the-
talked with staff, and staff has said, because remember, the project really, even in its infancy here, is just into the design phase. So you know how it works. There's a lot of, there's a long way to go. So I would think before there's somebody up there swinging a hammer, or in this case, screwing in a bolt, because there's, we've probably got at least a year.
What about going to delegation, putting a bond bill in?
So we had suggested
addition.
that we could do that maybe
Okay.
if,
We put up money
right.
against it.
And the reason apparently it was turned down, although many jurisdictions, some jurisdictions got some of those projects turned down, was because we were not far enough along
Right.
in the design phase
Yep.
for it to be a legitimate project to be put into the governor's budget.
So,
And I actually had asked,
Yeah.
let me back up,
Yeah.
I actually did ask, I had one of our legislators at one of the meetings up there, in a very crowded meeting up there, and it was suggested to him that bond money be put in, but it never went anywhere.
so what are the options right now that we're looking at?
Well, the options that we're looking at is to add an additional at least $420,000 to the project that would include that expanded area so that we can accommodate bleachers. So our option would be, and I understand what Ted's saying, because we're still, I'm very optimistic, though, that we can do something with the state. I think we can do something there. But again, as you say, the hope and optimistic part of it never comes into play, although I would argue that a little bit. But our options are to put another 420 onto the project and have a commitment for that bond money in the out years, which would add, I had said 500,000, but 420 is the figure to get the building that much more wider to accommodate that. So that would add whatever it is, Ted, a little bit less than 45, I guess, 40.
Can we do a matching funds type thing on this to say, community, look, we'll put X amount in, 3.2 million, we need a couple 100,000?
That has been discussed, but there's, Dick, you know that community. There's not much up there when it comes to commitment from someone to be able to do that. Where in the world would you get that? I mean, there's not a whole lot of commercial activity up there.
No.
So, but that's you asked the question, that would be it. I mean, that's the only option we have now, is to add that, and then add it to our bottom line, because we'd have to increase the amount of money we need bond commitment-wise.
Well, we need an answer from state roads first, state highways, before we do anything, really. What are you going to require?
So, yeah.
Well, they've given that to us. They've given the requirements.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
can
and-
you,
And we don't agree with them, and we're working to get a
Right.
better solution, but they have said that it needed a specific ingress and egress, specific design on 97 for,
that will cost us what?
well, that, I don't know what it would cost us, but it would cost us. They would not fund it up front. I mean, and I don't like that answer, and I just, Commissioner Wance, we.
It would be
are
their
committed to
funding.
Going back to them.
It would be 100% their funding,
Our funding.
No, we fund.
Our funding.
Yes.
and we don't know what that is.
I think we've heard some estimates. For some reason, 1.2 million, but I can't remember, to be honest.
Over $1 million at least.
Yeah, that's really anecdotal. I don't remember. But
Put RFP out.
through the conversation we had, we didn't like the answer, and we said we're going to commit ourselves to going back and come up with a better answer from State Highway. But that's where we left it, and that was a couple months ago, I think.
Yeah, that was at
Yeah.
your meeting, and I haven't
Yeah.
had a follow-up with them.
No.
And
So-
I'll tell you the way that it works, I didn't, well, I did, that was after I made the phone call. And they said, well, we'll get back to you, and I haven't gotten that back to you part yet. That hasn't happened,
So we need to reengage
yeah.
with State Highway and those folks.
And I know there's hope that the state will reconsider this, and I'm not arguing against attempting to get them to rethink this. But when they said this is what they needed, I can't see any possibility that they didn't understand that a community center is going to have less traffic than a school that is also used as a community center. So I'm not sure what the basis for optimism would be.
Well,
Oh, I
I
can't.
appreciate that, but I don't have the same
Yeah, I don't either.
perspective that you have in that discussion. I don't feel like they were really weighing how many folks are coming through. I think they saw this as a school, and they saw this as large, transit area, but the conversation we had, I just felt like they did not see it that way.
But
I wish
even
they
if
did.
they were looking at it as a school, it was already a school.
Right. Yeah, this
No.
whole thing was driven by the fact that it's a different usage. That's the whole reason behind this. But I would argue that the engineers that sit, and no disrespect to engineers, but they were given this and said, okay, is this going to work? And the engineers said, no, without additional detail. So I would argue that,
Well,
which
what
is
hap-
why I think we're
That was my
where we
takeaway.
are.
What happens if we move ahead with this design, we expand it, State Highway comes back and says, no, we're sticking with it, it's 1.5, 1.2 million, and then we're gonna need another 600, it's almost $2 million more than what we allocate, what do we do then?
Beg.
We go work with the delegation, get a
Yeah.
bond bill for $500,000 to match whatever funds we can put in it, and do whatever we can. But making sure, and again, this is a conversation we've had earlier, is working with the delegation early on to ensure they understand our priorities and what we want to go after for specific bond bills and budget. This obviously being one of them. It doesn't get us where we want to go now. That's
Right,
the
that's
thing.
the problem.
It's where do we want to go and commit ourselves now, as we're moving forward, so.
We need some answers to move forward here. I mean, we really do. And we need the delegation involved, we need we need everybody involved. Why can't we sit everybody down around the table and hash this thing out? Invite everybody in. This is what we need. Who can do what?
Well, that's fine, but you're not going to get any commitment out of the legislators for that.
Not today, but at least you get a commitment to push something forward. You get something from the state highway. You get people to start, I mean, we're sitting here in limbo. And here again, this has been 2 to 3 years in the process?
Yeah.
3 years? And we're
Well, two, I guess.
no further, I mean,
Right.
you
Well,
don't
we
have
are
a building to
further,
make.
but we're
Yeah.
just, now we've hit that,
Right.
we've hit a
I mean, we need answers.
roadblock, pun intended.
We can set up a meeting with the MDOT folks and re-engage with them. With the
Yeah.
legislators to gain their commitment to moving forward, that's fine, but that ain't happening until January.
Right.
For any action to actually take place. So it still leaves us, are we willing to commit county dollars now, with the expectation that we're going to be moving forward and and there's some significant risk associated with that. So,
Could we pin down exactly what another 420 would be to our bond?
Well, not exactly, because we won't know our rates, but we can give you a pretty good estimate.
Okay.
Does anybody have one of the amortization things? Are you hooking up to the internet?
45,000.
Deb's heading
I
somewhere.
mean, at least we could get that far so that the design could move forward. And then cross the bridge with the highway
Yeah.
challenges if that indeed occurs. And I understand, Ted, what you're saying. You got plans now in front of you that you can't do anything with. But I would say that I think once the story is refined so that those folks hear it, I think we can get somewhere with that. Because you were in the room, Ed, when I suggested, well, what if we phased in the approach?
Right.
With the road improvements up there. And
Right.
one of them said, well, that might work.
Right.
So
What interest?
I think there's room.
There's definitely, it seemed like an appetite, but there was nobody there willing to make a decision. And we had decision makers there. We just have to bring them back at the table and move forward. I do have a question. How many people will this service, and again, anecdotally, how large of a community? I just don't know. I mean,
I'd hesitate to give you that answer because I don't know either. And I don't know what the counts are up there. But keep in mind that the outreach would be more with a facility like that too. It's not just about that specific community, but
Right.
With that, there was even talk at the time that if we had a facility like that up there, that there would be some income, there would be some revenue generated as a result of gym usage.
Will the gym be charged? Will we charge for the use of it?
We're not even in that, just details yet. I don't know that we are. I mean, some of that discussion came up, but I don't know that we're to the point on specific usage and what that means.
On the debt service, using what is almost certainly a safe interest rate, we're probably talking about $40,000. So it could actually end up being a little bit less than that.
annually.
Right.
When were we when was the proposed start date for bond? Or are we already, we haven't done anything with that yet, right? So
No.
when were we slated to begin that bond or that debt service? 23, 24, 25? It's in 26, I don't, 23?
Well, what you just shared, what you just had up there, it was $10,000 for 21, correct?
Yes.
So if we did this and decided that this is just not going to work, and we got to just stop, and we decide to do that in a year, would this give us a year and only expend $10,000, and we would be able to recoup?
Well, we won't incur any debt service until we're spending money on the building. We won't sell the bonds before we start. So you don't have to worry about that ending up backwards. If there's no construction, there will be no debt service.
So this actually becomes only a placeholder?
Yes. And in fact, with any debt service, we're taking our best shot at saying, when do we think we'll actually pay the debt service?
I see.
We never know for sure until we actually see how long does it take
Right.
to start digging and building, and when do we spend the money?
So with that said, why would we start in 21? Would we start in 21, or could it be pushed off to the right? Would we be prepared to start in 21, the construction?
Right now, it seems likely not.
Right, so if we're not, then it could start in the out years, 22, 23, and get us, show us what that would look like. And it would only go to 25, because like Commissioner Wayne says, we don't care about 26. So,
How much is it going to cost us to finish the plans?
Well, I don't think.
I don't know if we have that on hand.
I gave it to Deb.
The expanded plans, how much, to get those plans in hand, how much would it cost?
The remaining encumbrance is the entire engineering price. Everything.
Okay, so we've encumbered $266,000 for the design and engineering.
Up till now? Or is that,
I think that's what we've encumbered, so I think that's our expectation of what it's going to spend, what we will be spending for the
Okay.
design.
With the expanded plans?
No, that's no part of anything right
But-
now.
Right, it doesn't make any difference if it's expanded plans or not, if it's,
yeah,
if
that
they
that
haven't
ain't
drawn the
gonna-
plans
that
yet.
is going to incur more architectural
No, just a longer line.
Right.
cost. Yeah,
But-
they're just going to move their, up.
but if we start this in 2023 with the debt service, I mean, why wouldn't we start it then? Why would we start this thing in 2020 if we're not prepared
We
to
won't.
incur the debt? But the numbers you're showing us are from 20.
Bond sales in
20.
20 and 21.
So if you push it to the right to 23, 22, 23.
Okay, that's where we were setting with what we had. Part of what I'm asking about, where do we think this is really going?
Right.
If we don't think construction's going to happen until FY '23.
Right.
Then there won't be any debt service until FY '24.
Right, so, and that's my point is, where we are at today, if we go through this design, we say, yes, we're committing to doing this, and everything aligns and we'll be ready to break ground, when do we believe that ground would be broken? Would it be 2022, 23? And then we back it from there? I mean,
However that plays out, we will adjust these numbers accordingly.
right, and I agree with you, I just, I think that you're,
Well,
number
initially,
you
I was
showed was
hopeful that we'd
2020.
begin construction in the latter part of 20.
are we prepared to, would you think we'd be prepared?
Well, we had the, yes, based on
Okay.
the numbers now, yes.
And the road improvements.
Right.
Issue.
Okay, okay. Yes. Because I don't mind those numbers, I'm just wondering if we push it to the right, because the realistic approach is we're not going to be ready until 21, 22.
And we're all about trying to capture this as realistically as we can. We had these numbers based on the situation we were working with.
Right,
A timeline that seemed reasonable. Then the road question came up. We could not adjust because we didn't know what to adjust to.
Right.
But if we get answers to that,
Yeah.
then we
Yeah.
will make the
Okay.
changes. And keep in mind, that Rob's approach on selling bonds is basically for us to begin spending the money, and then to sell bonds, we reimburse ourselves for whatever's actually been spent. So we are rarely, if ever, selling before we've already spent some of the money.
right.
So, if we start in '22, you're probably looking at '23 and so on.
Do you think you can have an answer from the state in 2 months, 2 or 3 months?
I would hope.
And depending what that answer is, it's going to drive everything else.
Unfortunately, they don't travel at the speed at which those that use their roads do.
Well, we still have this, another month, 6 weeks, this budget has to be passed, right? 5 weeks? Final decision?
Well, May 21st is the date, right?
4 weeks, whatever it is. End of May, we have to have this, right?
You legally have to adopt by the last day of May.
Last day of May.
I apologize, asking one more time. This discussion started 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
What was that?
I-
What was the dark year of closure?
Well,
You
and the point
remember?
is,
What was the dark year of closure?
It's 2 years ago.
2016 or 15?
15, I think.
okay.
I don't
So,
know. What was- It wasn't 14.
No.
okay.
It
I
was a
think it
year
was
after.
15 or 16. I think it was 16 or 15, I don't
I
know.
mean, so it took place, yeah, but that,
But the
So,
point,
so then it started after that, Ed.
Right.
With
okay,
the, or what are we going to do now? Because we
Yeah.
had 3 buildings that we didn't know what to do with. So then it went from there. So I think the discussion about it really started in 16.
and at that point, the Board of Commissioners committed to saying that there is a need and a requirement,
Right,
okay, to be met.
Right.
So we've all agreed to that point.
Right.
Okay,
and we got some numbers we got a per square foot number
yep,
based on what we thought a reasonable sized building would be up there.
Yep.
And as a result of that, 3.2 placed in the budget for the project at the time.
what is the size of the building?
I don't know.
I didn't bring the schematics with me.
I don't have it with me, Dick. I should know that, and I don't.
And then just on the schedule, a reminder, we have 2 sessions for you to talk about any other changes you wanted to make.
Right.
Right now, those are scheduled for the 21st and the 23rd.
Right.
Now, you're not locked into that, we could still change it. But remember, if in theory you said, well, we could adopt this at 11:59 on the last day of May, there are things that have to happen to translate your decisions actually into a budget. So the less time that's remaining, the more they start to squirm in their seats of it.
I didn't mean to scare you on that. I was just trying to get a time frame here that we need some answers, and then we can make some educated decisions on what we need to add and put into this. And, we did make the commitment to the community to put stuff there, and we have to honor that somehow, but I don't want to do it in, here again, substandard size, and
Now, if the board is willing to make 2 commitments, it's easy to move ahead. One commitment would be to a larger building, the second commitment would be to whatever we have to pay for the road improvements. If we're willing to do that, then this all becomes easy. We have timing issues to work out, but we can move ahead. But if there's questions about, are we willing to commit to the bigger building, or are we willing to commit to the cost of the road improvements, then everything gets very complicated.
Well,
And see, we don't even know what the road improvements are.
right,
Yes.
Because there are so many ramifications. I mean,
correct.
easements have to be acquired, and there's a well probably in the easement for the whole property if we have to put a lane in. So the well's got to be moved.
Yep. Let me change that. If the board is willing to commit to an open-ended, for the moment, commitment to the state roads, then it's easy to move ahead. And the answer on the side is 12,000 square feet.
There you go.
The funding.
Should have known that.
Okay, so if we're to commit to those two, make those two decisions, what would the funding implications be into this?
Well, we still don't know. You know, we have, you know, we showed you what the 420,000
Right.
to make a bigger building would be.
Right.
But I don't know what number to use for the roads. You know, and
We
if it's
need answers.
$1 million, then we're talking about, you know, $80 or $90,000 a year.
Right.
But I don't know $1 million's the right number. And then, like Commissioner Wance was just saying, you know, even if we had a kind of a construction estimate, you know, if we run into easements or replacing somebody's well, yeah, I have no way to try and even guess at what those things might be. Or do we run into utilities along the path of that? Yeah, I don't know if that's even a concern, but it could be.
It is.
Okay.
Don't forget the dinosaurs when we dig up.
Well, yeah, you run into bog turtles or, you know,
Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of rock there, too. So that's why they hesitated to give even an estimate, because it would be extremely difficult to do that.
and rock in Carroll County can often be a problem. And we've had places where we've done test borings to say, is there
Okay.
rock?
So-
And that looks okay, but then you get there and the place you dig, there's still rock. We've been there.
So moving forward, what is your recommendation?
To add the $420,000 to the building in order to make it the right size.
Well, if we add
And then
that,
deal with the ramifications as we move along.
if we add that, and the state comes and said no, we're not going to give on the road, it's going to cost another 1.5 million, what's your recommendation?
Somehow try to
Come
fund it
up
with
that
bonding.
$1.5 million.
Yeah,
Work with the delegation, get a bond bill.
because I
put
can
in.
assure you, as long as I'm in this seat for that community up there, I will not stop the project.
Well, I can understand that, but I just,
Because that community has healed with this project.
let me ask you, you know, you're putting a building in, and how did we get the architect in this? I mean,
Usual process.
RFP, yeah.
Yep.
was that put out for bid, or was that put out for bid?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so we do this. Next action is reaching out to State Highway, get them around the table again.
Yeah.
Continue to have the conversation. We could do that in the next week or so.
Yep.
And move forward. And you
Commissioner
tried
Roth-
to go out to 2026, and I'm glad you didn't.
And Commissioner Rothstein has worked with me, I want to say, in a great way to try to get them to understand the issue up there. So I think if we tag team them, we can get
Yeah,
them.
I agree.
Okay, and for purposes of planning now, based on this discussion, we have moved this out some with the idea that we're not ready to move yet.
Right.
And if we need to do state road construction, that would have to happen first. So it seems reasonably safe to say we can go
2023.
out a couple
Yep.
more years.
And I will say, to add to this conversation, for the community up there, if they know they're going to get the appropriate size building as opposed to not getting anything, by delaying it a year, I think that's where they would be. If it needs to go in that direction.
Sounds like a good compromise.
I mean, we're committed to
What's that?
keeping the strong quality of life for the community. And this is what you committed to a few years ago to kickstart. Let's now follow through. And, okay.
That's it, you wiped out the budget.
I'm back to square one.
Okay.
So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Now, with the anticipation that we are going to continue to work to deal with the challenges that lie ahead with the state highway, with MDOT.
Correct.
At what point, now, I'm just asking this, at what point do you get to the point and say, well, they've now escalated the costs up to here, and it's gonna cost, what point is it a cap on this?
At no point while I'm in this seat.
That can be changed.
Well, no, I mean,
No, I'm
It
just
will.
asking,
So-
what point is, we're looking at additional 1.67 million, maybe perhaps here. Where does it hit a point of no return?
so
I think it already has.
I appreciate that question. But
And I don't-
I don't think it's fair to put a number towards it, just as we're having the same discussion with turf fields, and other projects. Let's do due diligence, work through this, meet with state, and that's why I want to second this and get committed into this, because skin in the game for me is time, and putting time into this with MDOT, for them to come to the table and say,
22.
this is what's going to take.
We've been having a lot of things thrown our way over the last few years. I mean, with the schools and what do we do with them and the costs and all that, whether it's a turf field, whether it's buildings, whether it's this, and we have to figure it out. And I support you on this. The people up there got cut short, and I know that, but I just ask, at what point is that going to happen? And I want to ask you, what you think on that.
Yeah,
And-
it is a reasonable question, Dick. I agree with that. It is. And at what point is there a cap on it? I can't answer that at this
Well, I
time.
don't think anybody.
But you know as well as I do that I won't let it get ridiculously out of control. You know that. You've worked with me long enough to know
Well,
that.
I know that, but I do feel
So-
that we need to move ahead. We've started, but, I just am putting, I guess, some faith in the fact that we can resolve some of these things, hopefully, and get things moving in the right direction in the near future, so.
Okay. So this puts the project at a start date of 22, right, Deb? That's what I was giving you. I wasn't giving you
On
the
the
piece.
start date on the debt service.
On the
which would
debt
still
service.
assume we start spending before that.
Before that, okay. So that's the motion and second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Was that 4? Opposed? Okay. Right now, it's holding at 4-1. All right. Ooh, got through that one. Veterans Transit, why is that? Where are we with that? Veterans
Okay, wait.
Transit,
You have talked some about it. I didn't take it off the list because we didn't, I'm not sure we explicitly resolved it, although what I said to you at another session was, it sounds to me like the direction we're getting is you don't want to cap services. If we're not going to deny services to everybody, I think we need to be understanding that costs are almost certainly going to rise. Those rising costs are not captured in this plan. Ideally, we would build in some more growth, even though we don't know what it is. But if we don't, I just don't want anybody next year when this comes up saying, well, why isn't there enough money for this? Because the answer will be because we are providing service to more people than we were last year.
So right now, we have $142,000 in the budget,
That sounds right? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes?
and we have committed to taking care of our veterans through this transportation program. It has increased, we know that. And the last decision we made in conversation was, it was a status quo, maintain the services that we're providing. The concern is that it's going to grow and it's going to cost more than $142,000. I will share with you, if we should add into that for the budget, I'm good with doing that because I want to make sure our veterans are taken care of. We still have enough veterans concerns, but I've also, here in the county, but I also really believe that this is a statewide, regional, concern. And just like with the last conversation, having conversations with the administration to use their resources. I'm committed to doing that. But I'm not sure what that number would be. I mean, it's very subjective. It's, we're at 142. Do we say, okay, let's go to 160 and put it in the budget? Because my concern is we're going to live within our means and we're going to grow real fast to that 160 commitment.
I don't think there's any reason to think that ridership is going to go up because of the budget.
Okay.
I think what's going to drive ridership is more people becoming aware of the services available to them. I can't see, veteran Rothstein saying, oh, they increased the budget, now I'm going to ride.
There's so many things I could say.
Don't. Don't
What,
bust the broom.
would it be fair to put into the budget like 180,000, you think, for the next couple of years, or 200 or whatever, to,
Yeah, well, there's no way for us to know a right number, but it would seem to me, with what we've experienced, we ought to probably be adding $20,000 or $25,000 a year until we find out that that's not happening.
Right.
okay.
I
That,
agree with you. We have committed ourselves to our veterans. It has become a,
Yeah, every year.
kind of a hallmark of this county, project. And there's a few projects we have in this county, ag preservation being one of them, but this veterans program that we've built really is a model for the state and has become, a signature project for this county, and we're recognized that way.
Frederick County wants to bring their new Veterans Board, at least the president, down to see how we operate.
Oh, they all are.
They all are. This has been a model, and believe me, I did not realize how far we've come
Yep.
in the last few years on this, but we are the state of the art as far as the Veterans Council, and the way the Veterans Council operates, 1 hour, man, from start to finish, and they accomplish everything. They have a large attendance. It is unbelievable.
And the last thing I just want to share, the key about this project, it really lays out that we're doing a service for our veterans and not a flagpole or a monument like a lot of other jurisdictions are doing. And they're dedicating plaques and monuments and flagpoles, which I can applaud us to somewhat, but we're not doing that. We're actually providing a service for our veterans
When they need it.
when they need it. So that's what's so cool about this. So, yeah, if we can, yeah,
So you're suggesting that we put,
additional,
25,000 a year
okay,
increase. I'll make that motion.
I'll second
You
it.
did 20 or 25, I think. Oh, good. I think that's fine.
No, you said 25, did you want 20?
25.
How'd it get to 40?
Because the next year it's 25 plus the 25.
Yes.
And hopefully the state will get on board, regionalize some of this and help us out.
I'll be with Secretary Owens tomorrow evening, and he's going to get a earful of this, and just how well we're doing. Now, figure out how we can use his resources. So,
so I
What's
get,
the bottom line on that one?
yeah, I get
Because-
what you're doing there, but I thought it was your intent to add just 25,000 across the board
You can't do that.
for the next
Now we're negative.
5 years.
Okay. Well, that'd be okay if you think we're going to see one more year of increase in ridership, but not any more after that.
I understand that, but
Pretty much what-
we're, that's what I know, that's what you said, but it just seems like, here again, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how we're gonna do that.
No.
Now we're gonna have to find something else, because you saw the out years.
If the $25,000, don't like using the term, one-time funding, would then be put into 2020 and show us whether that money is necessary or not to maintain the transportation program we have, would allow us then to decide whether we need out-year money, because we may not. I mean, there really is only a finite number of veterans in the county. It's a large number, but it's finite. This may be the, we got to a certain point,
And they're decreasing.
and,
Well, that's the other thing.
you know,
No. I
So,
think,
so that's what I thought you were
So-
doing. I thought you were throwing
that's fine.
25,000 of one time into 20
yeah,
in the anticipation of seeing what that will do for the out.
right. And I'm fine with that, because that'll give us
But was that your,
the litmus test. Yeah, because I don't think we're gonna need that much. I mean, we've been growing this thing, and I just don't think it's gonna be that necessary to be
Oh.
that big, that
But
robust.
The 25 would still be in it, so.
okay. So it's your intent to just put 25,000 of one time in 20?
Okay, you're not really saying one time, are you? You're saying you're increasing
Ongoing?
it in 20, but continuing.
Increasing on, yeah,
So you want to move the line up from the 140, whatever it is now,
to
to 165 or whatever.
167.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and we can do that with the idea that we're going to see, is there more?
Right,
And I'm not fighting that. The only reason I was bringing up the other is
Yeah.
saying, unless we really believe that we're not going to see continued ridership,
Right.
then we're understating what this really is going to look like.
the challenge I have with the, I 100% agree with where we're going with this, is the 25,000 to me right now is just, it's too anecdotal of a number. It's kind of like,
It's not based on anything other than we know we've been increasing.
I
for the
know,
last
and
few
that's what bothers me. I mean, so we're up to 142, what were we last year? Like 125?
No, it was about 100, wasn't it?
Well, they had to come back to you for more money in the middle of the year.
Right.
This year.
Yeah, in the middle of this fiscal
And
year.
how much did they come back to us for?
The original budget was 102,000, and they came in for a transfer of 40,000, which got us to 142 and 19. And it's also 142 and 20.
And the year before that, 18 to 19?
I can look that up for you.
Yeah, and whatever year it started, I think the initial appropriation was $20,000.
Was 25,000, yeah, in like 2006 or somewhere.
So
No,
that's,
2012. I mean.
12.
you know, it's been
2012.
growing quickly. And I'm not suggesting we
Right.
can just draw a straight line into the future.
Right, no, and I agree. But it went from 25,000 2012, when it just started to help, and then define itself, to now 142. I don't know if, I don't know what the magic number is. I'm kind of guarded on that, but
Yep, I don't know either.
yeah, I know.
FY '18 was 105,000.
So it went down.
There
To
had been a
100.
change in insurance,
No.
a large change in insurance.
It went from 105
We
to
got
102.
them through legislative authority to put them on the legit insurance. So it was a significant increase in a significant decrease in their costs.
Okay,
So the overall cost of the program went down, so they didn't need to increase the budget
right,
much.
okay.
Motion? That's
Well,
your
unless-
motion?
Yeah, unless you want to
Yeah.
just keep it the way it is, amended, and I'll just second
Yeah.
You
as
two good?
amended. Yeah.
Action,
Well, he
So,
changed
to
numbers.
do it
so
this
as
way.
amended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
25,000 a year
Yes.
increase.
So an escalating 25,000,
Correct.
starting in FY '20.
Yes.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hands opposed? Okay. The Board of Elections salary increase, I mean, who knows where that is? We, as you saw, I gave you that letter that the RCC is submitting. I mean, 17% salary increase over the next 2 years to me is just a lot. I mean, we're struggling to give our folks 3%. So, I mean, I hesitate to use the word absurd, but, and I understand they're doing salary studies to get them up to where they are supposed to be and whatever, but I just don't know that we can put anything in place at this point. I really don't.
Yeah, and
This
for
one
the
and the
state,
minimum wage, both. We just have no way to, what in the world would we do, other than it's on our plates?
and on this, for the state, this is easy. They can look at it and say, well, this is what they ought to be paid, and they don't have to worry about the burden of doing it. And, so you're taking a position against this. I wouldn't bet against the state coming back and saying, well, you have to do it anyway. And the full implementation cost, I think, could be somewhere in the area of $80,000 a year. So we might find ourselves talking about this again.
Right. The minimum wage legislation, the same. We have no way of really knowing. I mean, I know that HR has done some preliminary work on what it's going to mean by 2025 to get the folks that need to be up to where they are based on that. And I'll once again add my adjective, stupid legislation. But I don't know that we can anticipate anything in our budget at this point, other than to say, again, it's on our plate, right?
And there are a couple ways we can look at this. What HR has proposed to you would be to fully use the 3% increases over the plan to move the scales, which would take care of your minimum wage
Obligation.
concerns. You should be able to meet that. The problem that causes is that people won't be advancing through the pay scale. So like take the budget office, for example. If we went 6 years of 3% moving the scale every year, if I hired another budget analyst 6 years after a budget analyst, they would be making exactly the same amount of money. An alternative, which wouldn't be able to, what you probably couldn't accomplish within the plan money, would be to budget additional money to address the need for the minimum wage and still give yourself some room for people to move through the scale. But that's going to be a more expensive option. Either way, it's going to be difficult.
Right. So that's just on our, it's on our radar. Let's leave it at that. And I could go in, I could go into more on that, but I'm not gonna.
Good.
And then we have future budgets that we've got on here, and specific action items of East Middle. Again, I think we're waiting on the feasibility study, is that correct, Dick?
Correct. They will
Where
make
they're,
probably something on that for next year, not this year.
Yeah, and with East Middle, as things stand, we do have capacity in the dedicated local income tax for school construction, I believe, to handle a project. So this is actually one where not acting today doesn't create a problem. We would still have room to deal with it.
right.
I think they have a good plan in place.
Okay, well, we'll see where that goes. Kerwin, obviously, we've discussed that ad nauseum, I think, and really nothing we can do at this point. Again, it's a radar item. We've taken some money out of the infrastructure renewal. And I know that's troubling to you, Ted, so it's troubling to all of us, so.
Yeah, and the reason for putting this on is about more than that $1 million. It's about the big idea.
As a
that,
whole, the entire
you know,
picture.
how are we going to deal with this
Right.
over decades?
And then I think the combined fire and EMS is certainly, again, a radar item. We do have in the budget right now a person to begin work on what it means in the out years.
So we have 1.5?
Well, two people, a person and an assistant.
Yeah, right. That's
To
what I meant.
begin the process of what it's going to mean for us. Keeping in mind that, again, this is going to be a phased-in approach that we are going to have to do. There's no way that we can put, there's no way it can just drop down and go, Okay, in 2026, here's what's going to happen, although I don't know that I care about that. But anyway, but you guys know what I mean. It's going to be a phased-in approach. So it's my anticipation that that individual and his or her assistant will help us, if we can find that individual, as we begin our deliberations
So as this
for
goes.
this
in-
next
yeah.
year.
As this goes into the budget, putting the job description together and then the hiring process, is that going to take place over the summer, or is that next fiscal year? I mean, is it going to be 1 July we do this, or what do you think, Roberta?
That's sort of up to you guys.
Yeah, okay.
I know at one point there was talk about, sort of half year trying to hire this person.
Right.
But yeah, we could, certainly job descriptions and things can be done prior to the fiscal year
Sure.
starting, but the hiring and that would be after the fiscal year.
So I mean, I think we need to start shaping that job description, at least getting the framework, and then getting all of us engaged. And obviously,
Right.
Commissioner Wentz, your insight and experience is going to
Well-
add value, but just getting the framework of the job
Right.
description.
And I would agree with that, Ed. I think that's the right way to go. And I think in conjunction, working closely with Visa and their ESAC committee, we'll be able to come up with that,
Yep.
which I would suspect they probably already have a job description.
Right.
Description that they'll show to us that we'll be
Right.
able to look at and say, okay, well, we're good with that, not good with that. Because I'm still a little bit on the fence about what we're going to call the person. So there's still more details to come.
Yeah, work has started, and HR has been involved in that as well.
Okay. And then obviously, the last one on this list is Next Gen 911, and I think we've answered those questions as it pertains to, what happens when.
Yeah, and some of these items that are about what's going to come to us in the future, just want to make sure we're thinking about when we get to the end of this process, and we say, okay, we have a balanced budget, but what we're going to end up with is almost certainly, a couple $100,000 in fiscal year '26. Just want to make sure we're thinking, okay, we balanced it, but we know that there's still things coming that we have not addressed in balancing this budget that are still going to be out there to be dealt with.
Okay. So, based on that hard work, here's the bottom line right now.
Oh,
Now-
forget that couple
Were there any
100,000.
other decisions?
Wait, what?
Oh.
I said, forget the couple 100,000 I was talking about.
So, take a moment to absorb this. I mean, we had suggested that perhaps we go through a summary of this just to make sure we know what we did here. If you want to revisit that, that's fine. If there's anything else that any of you have that we need to address, now would be the time to do that. And of course, keeping in mind that we're going to hear after Ted's traveling roadshow, what some of the things are that he has heard out there. And then we've got the public hearing yet. And then we'll have time to adjust accordingly based on some of those comments that we hear, So, y'all want to take a break? What do you want to do here? We've been at this now for an hour and a half again.
Does anybody want to go down the list of things, the changes that we've made? Is everybody comfortable with what we've done, and we could just move forward toward adoption, unless there's, ask, does anybody have anything else, or what, if anyone's got anything else?
I'm good with it.
No sense beating it up.
No.
Dennis?
I've got nothing else.
Ed?
No, I think we've captured it.
Dick?
I'm done.
Eric?
I'm good with it.
And I'd suggest one other change before we put this out as your proposed budget. Now, of course, fiscal year '20 has to be balanced. You don't have a bottom line in '20. What I'm going to suggest is that we go back into our revenue projections reduced them by $1.7 million. Now, to the extent that revenues come in higher than we expected, that will become unassigned fund balance at the end of fiscal year '20,
Right.
which then becomes available for whatever choices that you would want to make. It'll put us in a stronger position to feel comfortable we will in fact make our revenue projections.
Right. The other option would be what? To spread it out into the out years, or?
I don't really believe that's an option, because remember, it's not money we have.
Okay.
Right, we don't have-
The only way to get there would be to take more unassigned fund balance and
Right.
put it into
Got it.
future years.
Okay.
But there really wouldn't be any gain to doing
To
that at
showing
this
that.
point, because it's not
Right.
there to pay for anything.
Yeah.
So you want to reduce your projection to zero that out, so then eventually it'll be like found money?
Yes.
Sounds good to me.
And what's driving that is, by law, your budget has to be a balanced
Makes
budget.
sense.
You
I
can't
get it.
have more revenue than expenditures.
Largest nonprofit in Carroll County.
Ted, if you want to do that, on day one, they used $824,000 in FY '20 and plugged a little money in '24 and '25. 91,000 and 100.
No, we used unassigned fund balance. We reduced it in one place and increased it in another. They talked about it as taking it from the bottom line, but it's not how it works.
Just to get to zero.
Right, so it just when you're getting back to zero on these numbers, if you get back to zero on the outs, then you.
No, it wouldn't be,
No,
Oh.
just this year.
right? We're only talking about this year.
Okay.
All right, in your mind, Ted, Deb, or our analysts, is there a need to take a break to make sure we are where we need to be here? Or are we prepared to move? You want to just make sure of the numbers, or are you good?
I think Deb would be sure.
I mean, Ted, what do you think? You think this-
Mechanically, we're okay.
In that case, if you don't need a break and you think we are where we are and we've exhausted all efforts,
Well, you need a motion to change the bottom line from FY '20 to zero it out, right?
Second it?
I was gonna say, make a motion with that the commissioners pay, but we're on camera, so I can see.
Okay. Magic.
okay. So I've got,
Makes it look like we did a
Can we
perfect
just
job.
get a, before leaving today, just a printout of this? That'd be great.
I know.
okay, so let me do this one. Got a motion and second to take that appropriate action as you see reflected on the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anything else, Ted?
Okay. Did you vote to make this the proposed budget?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's why I'm
So
making
next-
sure we got
could be
the
the next
i's and the
thing.
t's and everything else here before we roll.
Make a motion to make this the proposed budget.
Second.
All right, got a motion and second that we make this the recommended proposed budget. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, right now we're 3-2,
But that's all it takes.
but that's all that it takes.
That's all it takes.
So, that's where we are at this point, and we'll see where we, again, after Ted does his thing across the county, and we see our public hearing. And certainly, I'm sure we're going to get some feedback between now and the next time we all sit here and discuss this, so, okay?
Okay,
All
so
right.
We'll be releasing your proposed budget then on the 30th. And then the 5 community presentations are the first at Eldersburg Library, the second at Mount Airy Library, the 6th at Westminster Library, the 7th at Tawningtown Library, the 8th at North Carroll Library. And the public hearing is on the 13th at the Scott Center at the Community College. The adopted work sessions, as needed, would be on the 21st and the 23rd, and then budget adoption is scheduled for the 28th.
Okay. Everybody good? All right, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you in a few weeks. We are adjourned.